There's no guru or anyone else who can shift your consciousness. This is still a practice that's very much your own. You have to take the time and work with it. It can't be given to you. It can't be theoretical and be yours.
It has to be your experience, and that's why it's my big toe. The my just means that if it's not your experience, it's not your knowledge. You can have an intellectual appreciation for it. I can explain it all to you, and you can get it all intellectually, but that's just a shadow of what's real. It's not yours until it's your experience. When it's in your intellect, you have two choices. You can believe it or you cannot believe it. Neither one is of any value, and it won't take you any place important. It's about growing up. It's about evolving. It's about changing yourself. And intellectual understanding doesn't do that for you. You have to get it at a being level. It's at a deeper level. So just getting an intellectual appreciation is nice, and it may help you understand things, and it may be a catalyst to your growth, because it may open your mind, and you say, oh, hey, I see.
Maybe it gives you permission to explore.
It may give you, permission. So it's not that you can't help somebody, but you can't do it for them. You can't carry them across the finish line. They have to do it themselves. You can help them get prepared. You can produce an environment that encourages their growth, but they have to grow. And that's true everywhere. It's not just true in exploring the larger reality. That's true if you and I are old friends and I'm trying to help you with a problem. I can't solve your problem for you. All I can do is provide for you an environment in which you can more easily solve the problem for yourself. And that's fundamentally true all over. You know, you can't tell anybody anything really as far as what they ought to do or how they ought to do it or what reality's like. They have to come to that on their own. You can only give them an environment that makes it easier for them, but they have to do it.
And as you say, reality is highly subjective, so that even more so, you can't tell someone what it's like.
No, you can tell what it's like for you.
Right.
And that's a great mistake. You see, if you tell people what it's like for you, then they think that's it, because we all have this belief that it's objective. Okay? And Bob did this, you know, Bob's books were wonderful because he opened thousands of minds to a larger reality. But he also convinced thousands of minds that this is the way that larger reality was. This is the way it was for Bob. This was Bob's interpretation. But most people think that's the objective reality and that's the way it is. And somewhere up there, there's this park and there's this and all the things that Bob talked about. Well, these were his own interpretations. And now you have people trying to reproduce Bob's experiences, because those are the real experiences. You see, and that's unfortunate, because they shouldn't be trying to reproduce Bob's experiences. They should be having their own experiences, their own interpretations. But just having the experience is not that significant. You know, if having the experience was significant, then drugs would help you evolve. They can help you have an experience, but drugs are harmful to your evolution. So it's not the experience, it's understanding the experience, it's growing from the experience. It's being able to use that experience to get a bigger picture of reality and to understand what you are, who you are, and what you should be doing. If that experience doesn't do that for you, it's just an experience. Why bother? It's just not that important. And people have to have their own experience. So when you I have lots of people say, well, Tom, what's it like? You know, give me tell me some of the things you've seen and some of the things you've done and so on. And they want stories. I don't tell stories, because it actually is not helpful to those people. It entertains them, it excites them, it may give them enthusiasm, but it also gives them a belief, locks them into that's the way it is, makes it harder for them to do it themselves. So in a way, I'm actually hurting their ability to grow by setting up another belief system in their mind that now they have to overcome. And that's just not
Or try to
useful.
Aspire to, either way.
Right, either way.
It's not theirs.
It's not theirs, and they don't need to either feel, well, gee, I could never do that. That's harmful to them. And they don't have to feel, that's what I need to do. That's harmful to them. So I don't tell stories, because it's just not helpful to people. And if you're not at a point where you are likely to have these experiences, then the story isn't going to help you. To have somebody else tell you about it is not helpful to you. It's counterproductive. Now, if you already are having these experiences, sure, you can trade and you can talk, because they're common experiences. They're just different interpretations. And that's fine. but it's not a thing that in a public broadcast where you're going to go to thousands of people listening, you don't want to tell stories. You tell stories to people you know who also understand, and they realize it's interpretation, and you're not going to actually inhibit their own growth because of it.
And today you talked about a lot of theory, okay? And it was interesting because a lot of it was through the computer model of reality, right? A virtual reality. And we would spend probably the next 8 hours completing this interview if we were to go into all of those tenets. So what I thought we would do, because people can certainly get in touch with you, they can come to one of your conferences, they can purchase your books, any number of things to start getting into the fundamental principles behind your big toe, or my big toe, as it is. But I thought what we do is just kind of toss out some things that happen by way of ordinary or even mild phenomenal type of experience, and you might explain to us what kind of principles are at work when these things happen.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Sure, let's do that.
Okay, so for example, when we talk, say someone decides they want to know something about their future, right? Maybe they haven't learned about creating, what it means to literally create your own reality. So you want to find out what your reality is going to be. So you go to a psychic that has a good reputation for kind of hooking in, and that person reflects information back to you, and some of it's ooh-ah, and maybe a person they talk about or described even does end up entering your life in a few months' time. But let's talk about what's really happening when you're sitting with that intermediary.
Okay, well, what's really going on there is that, well, we're assuming that this psychic that's doing it is a bona fide psychic doing it.
Let's say they're good at what they do.
Can actually do this, and what you have is that the person connects to what I call the probable future database, and that is part of how the larger system works. If you understand how consciousness works, that consciousness is just information, then information stored is a database. Okay? And one of the databases that is in the consciousness system is the probable future database, and that's all the things that we might do and the probability that we might do them. Okay? And this reality, of course, is a shared, it's a multiplayer game. We have a lot of us in it, and we interact. So it's the probability of those interactions, what we might do, what we might say, how we might do it, how we might take it, how we would interpret it. All the things that are possible then are kind of worked out in probability for everyone. And you think, well, gee, that would be really hard. I'm hard to guess. I'm a kind of a mysterious person, but it's not that hard to guess. You have every thought, feeling, thing you have ever done since you've been here. You're not that hard to guess.
That creates mathematical probabilities of certain
creates probabilities of future events, because there's a long history on you. And it's not just history like the police have, right? It's not just that you were arrested for this or found doing that, but this is every thought, every feeling, every intent that you've had, every dream, it's all the data. So it's not that hard to project, given the choices that are available, what that person's likely to do. And you're not projecting it, what they're going to do a year from now. You're only projecting what they're going to do in the next tiny increment of time. Tiny, tiny increment of time, which is even easier. And then you say, well, if that was the case, then what would they, if this was true, if that last projection or that tiny increment was true, we'll assume that's right. Now let's project what the next increment would be, and the next one, you work your way out. Well, every time you do that, you're making an assumption that the last one was correct, which may not be a good assumption. So your reliability goes down and down and down the further out you can go, but you can run this out as far as you like. And this is the probable future database. Somebody has a precognitive dream, that's where they get the data. Somebody wants to tell a fortune, that's how they tell the fortune. They get into that database. The database can be queried with intent. And now these people doing it don't know it's a database and they're querying it with intent. They have their certain tools that they use to do it, things they do with their mind. But the only active ingredient is consciousness. Everything else is ritual, and tools. They may have you sit on a throne or, incense and smoke, or sprinkle holy water on you, or who knows what they might do. They may play certain music. They may do all kinds of things. But that's just their tool set for focusing their mind to get into this database to find out what's probable for you. And they also don't know it, but you can get that data in any format you want. Most people get it in pictures because, as we all know, a picture's worth 1,000